genocide, unfortunately, this is what we're facing now under American control in Iraq. The death toll since 2003 in Darfur, Sudan, is less than half of what has happened in Iraq. And that is something that, for political reasons, the Bush administration has chosen to term a genocide. Well, with more than double that in Iraq, I feel comfortable in calling it a genocide in 5 years' time. And this is a statement that was made by a man who lived in Baghdad. I don't know if he's still there, but in April of 2007, on a day when 6 consecutive car bombs went off in Baghdad. And he said, "We do not know who is killing us, but we do know who is responsible for our safety." And the important points there are that Iraqis who have lived their entire lives in Iraq are stunned by the violence that's come in on the backs of the invaders. They don't know who's responsible for the violence and the death toll, so it is the epitome of the arrogance of empire for us to say this was Sunni, this was Shia, this was Al-Qaeda, this was whatever. People there don't know what's happening, but they do know who's responsible for their safety, and that is, by international law, the occupying force, the Americans, and they hold us responsible as well they should. That's my name. That's my website. The most important reason for my website is to back up what I say, because my message is so vastly different from what's in the mainstream media. So I have a section called Further Reading. I think I back it up pretty well, but it's organized by category, and so I hope you'll check it out. So as I said, just a warning, I am going to show you images of occupation. And by the end of this, it is going to be intense, but this is about, so you spend a couple hours with me tonight, and then we'll go to our homes and kind of decompress. But Iraqis have no respite from the suffering and no end in sight. So I'm going to cover a little bit of background, both Iraq and my own. We'll talk about the devastation of the first Gulf War, which is the foundation upon which we built shock and awe. And how things only got worse during shock and awe, but I want to close on our goal of ending the occupation so that healing can begin. Now this is a picture of George Bush. This is back in March of 2004. Now every year in the United States there's a Radio and Television Correspondents Association dinner, which should send off red flags to the American people, because the media is supposed to be the watchdog of the government, not the lapdog of the government. So that a black tie affair in Washington every spring is really not what we want to be seeing. But nevertheless, the tradition is that the president will stand up and give remarks that are a comedy routine. Well, last year, this dinner took place shortly after the shootings that happened at Virginia Tech. And so out of respect for the families, George Bush decided he would not do the comedy routine. But back in March 2004, 1 year after illegally invading Iraq, over 100,000 Iraqis are dead. Over 500 American servicemen and women are dead. He didn't have a problem cracking jokes. And he and his staff had taken pictures in the Oval Office, looking under furniture, behind doors, and they showed, this is one of the slides they showed, I got it off the internet, saying those weapons of mass destruction have got to be here somewhere. And then you see Joe Lieberman laughing in the audience. A lot of people thought that was funny. But probably this young man isn't laughing that he was sent to fight a war based on lies. 21 years old, sent to Iraq, stepped on a landmine, lost both his legs and his right arm. And this young man probably isn't laughing that there were no weapons of mass destruction. RPG went through his right leg. He is now disabled, now dependent on a VA system to help take care of him for the rest of his life. And probably this British soldier isn't laughing at the moment he's trying to save his life from a burning tank in Basra. And for Iraqis, 5 years of a brutal and bloody occupation, and as I said, no end in sight. Now let me back up a little bit, because this is something that most Americans, I think, can't make the connection to, because we funnel our money into cruise missiles rather than education, but bear with me. This is, of course, the land of Mesopotamia, is the Fertile Crescent, and you see it outlined in green in this image. This is between 2000 and 3000 BC. And in the lower right corner, you see the major early civilizations. Here's Sumer, Ur, and Babylon. This, of course, the Tigris and Euphrates, Mesopotamia. And just as a historical point, between 2000 and 3000 BC, this over here is Palestine. Israel was a state created in 1948. Now the Garden of Eden, the biblical Garden of Eden, that's in the location, is in modern-day Iraq. Abraham, father of the three major monotheistic religions, was from Ur. Now my dad says Abraham was an Iraqi. That might be pushing it a little bit, but nevertheless, this is a connection that many of us have to this part of the world. But that's not what they were talking about when we were getting ready to rain bombs on Iraq. As I said, the major early civilizations, these are the people who devised the concept of the 24-hour day. First system of writing and basis of mathematics. You see, these are Arabic numerals that we use. The basis of law, science, and medicine, actually 7,000 years of civilization. And it was all accomplished without the help of any Americans or British. It's true. It's true. This is a pictorial of what the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may have looked like, built by Nebuchadnezzar II in 600 BC, for many years respected as one of the 7 wonders of the world. It was not built by Halliburton. So, if you're concerned about what will happen with Iraqi reconstruction after American troops and American businesses leave, I have a feeling that the descendants of the people who did this can probably throw something together. It's going to be all right. Don't worry. But enough about Iraq. Let's talk about me. My favorite subject. All right, these are my parents, my crazy parents. This photo is from August 1967. My dad originally from Basra, Iraq. Iraq's second largest city in the south, near the border with Kuwait. Born and raised there, graduated from secondary school, and went on to Baghdad University, College of Education in the Sciences. And he graduated from there in 1961, doing well enough to earn a government scholarship to do his graduate studies overseas. So he ended up coming to Washington, D.C., was studying in the D.C. area, where he met another graduate student, a nice Jewish girl from New York. Now, take-home message is, with an Arab father and Jewish mother, although those groups are not mutually exclusive, there are many Arab Jews, but with an Arab father and an Ashkenazi Jewish mother, I am 100% Semite. So if you like, you can insult either side of my family, and that would be anti-Semitic, but if you could hold it for the Q&A, that would be great. Other point, with an Arab father and Jewish mother, Dahlia is going to be in therapy for a long time. Okay, moving on. Now, my parents were married in 1968, had my sister in 1969, and then their lives dramatically improved, ladies and gentlemen, when I came along. Now, I don't just say that because, you know, that I want to show you a cute picture, but I think we can all agree this is a very cute baby right here. So if anyone wants to contest that, no, I didn't think so. But let's build on this unity. Now, this is me, 6 months old, and this is in our backyard in Iraq. After my dad finished his PhD in August of '71, he had to pay back that government scholarship by teaching at Basra University for 5 years. So the first 5 years of my life were back and forth between Iraq and the States. So for any of us, the memories we have of our childhood from before the time that our brains could make memories are from the pictures. So you talk to me about Iraq, I think of this, sitting in our backyard, living there. Unfortunately, most Americans have been well trained to think of this, and therein lies the problem. They were dehumanized, and I don't want to be identified by the actions of my government any more than the Iraqi people deserved to pay the price for the actions of theirs. So we left in 1977. My dad always intended that we would go back at least for a visit, but in 1980 the Iran-Iraq War started. That lasted for 8 years. At that point, I'm a junior in high school. It's not really possible for us to, not as easy for us to travel. Before you know it, August 2nd, 1990 rolls around, and without consulting my family, Saddam Hussein moved troops into Kuwait. And 4 days later, economic sanctions were imposed. 5 months later, the Gulf War happened, which was 42 consecutive days of bombing. Now, I no longer live on the East Coast because I really can't handle the weather that you guys experience. I don't like 3 consecutive days of rain. But we bombed them for 42 straight days. And so their ability to survive boggles my mind. What followed was 13 years of sanctions, and really the only reason I have family to visit today is because my father was in the States earning a salary and able to send them money so that they could buy food. So then, then came the lead up to shock and awe, and the invasion happened, and I was like, we keep waiting for things to get better, and they just keep getting worse. So I'm going to go ahead and go. And that was a little bit stupid, but it worked out fine. And so I returned in February, March of 2004, visiting Baghdad for the first time and meeting, most of the family I was meeting was, I'd never met them before. I hadn't been to Baghdad, so I didn't know that distant family. And most of my cousins were born after we'd left in '77. Families paid the price, like the people of New Orleans, who have yet to be able to return home almost 3 years after Hurricane Katrina hit, because while we spend $1 billion on an illegal occupation, there's just not enough money for reconstruction at home. Whether it's the 26 million Iraqis who paid the price, and actually during the years of sanctions, Saddam Hussein got fat. He was not having a lot of problems getting by, but the people paid the price. Typically, when you will see images of Arabs or Muslims in the media, you will see young military-aged men. They are often dressed in black. They often have the chafia over their face to hide their identity. They're often marching, carrying weapons, and they are chanting in unison in a language that most of us can't understand. This is the image that bombards the American people on a regular basis. Now that is a subliminal message that these people are not like us, because do the math with me. Any country, any population you pick, about half male, half female. Add up the women, the girls, and the boys. The majority of any population are women and children. And when we don't see those images in the mainstream media to balance the negative images that we're bombarded with, it's a subliminal message that they're just not like us. I can't put my finger on it, but they're just not like us. In reality, it is the women and children who pay the highest price whenever there's no law and order. And if we would connect the dots, we'd recognize that that's why those young men are angry. Now, was Iraq a threat to us? I'm sure this audience is with me. No, Iraq was not a threat to us, but one of the reasons for that was our use of depleted uranium since the first Gulf War. Now, depleted uranium, just briefly, many of you are probably familiar with it, but let me tell you, American audiences, they just don't know what it is. But I try to explain to them that this is basically our generation's Agent Orange. It's radioactive waste, because when Canada or the United States or any other country mines uranium for the purpose of nuclear power, nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, only 0.7% of what is mined is usable for the purpose of that nuclear power. The other 99.3% is garbage. And we have it stockpiled in the United States. I think you have some stores here as well. But come visit me in Colorado. We got nuclear missile silos. We got depleted uranium. It's a great place to be. Anyway, what the Pentagon found was that this leftover depleted uranium, depleted because it no longer has the valuable isotope that we use for energy, it's the most dense material on Earth. So what they found was when they formulated it into rods and put it in missiles and aimed those missiles at tanks, it cuts through a tank like a hot knife through butter, which is very exciting if you are the Pentagon. Not very exciting for anybody else. But what happens on impact is that the depleted uranium, which is also on 50-millimeter artillery rounds, also in artillery shells, also some missiles are tipped with it, it on impact bursts into flames, and it aerosolizes like spraying an aerosol spray can. And the particles go and you can't see them anymore. They're microscopic. It goes into the air and the sand and the water supply for the civilian population. This is tons of microscopic contamination, and uranium is radioactive. So this is radioactive contamination for the world, essentially. Concentrated in the areas we've used it, but we have wind currents that will take it all the way around. Now, Major Doug Rockey was the Pentagon's go-to guy to investigate our use of DU, and after the first Gulf War, that was the first time we used it, dropping over 300 tons during that 6-week conflict. And his determination was that the civilian population was exposed, American soldiers were exposed, so that recommendations were, first of all, you never should have used this in the first place, don't ever use it again. Second of all, you have to provide the civilians with education on what you've done to them. And third, the returning veterans need to be tested, because if they have medical problems resulting from that exposure, that's service-related disability.